I think he lagged out.
Yeah, I just turned off my VPN,
Clear.
so it should be audible now. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so we should have two competitors. Do we have Jake with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and Junseo will be along later on. Okay, so Jake, the floor is yours. I will be chairing. Alongside me, we have Joan from Hong Kong.
Hello.
And Victor, who is representing South Korea. Okay.
So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Imagine a world where healthcare systems fail so dramatically that individuals take extreme measures to address this problem, including sacrifices of human life. So to change this kind of healthcare system and address its flaws existing in modern day life healthcare systems, it is clearly shown that shown from historic backgrounds and historical examples that people will do anything for a certain kind of reform, right? So the question arises: is it ever morally right to sacrifice lives to address healthcare reform? So in my speech today, I'll be talking about two main contentions to answer this question and to say that it is more immoral to sacrifice lives for such reform. So first, value of human life. Second, alternative ways to address this problem. So moving on to the first contention, which is the value of human life. Human life right now is considered as sacred and valuable, something that we should not be sacrificing to achieve any purpose. But if we sacrifice lives for any cause, it will compromise these kind of international concept of morality, this global concept of morality, right? So when we accept that life can be sacrificed for the greater good of the society, in the utilitarianism perspective, this is just simply justifying murder and chaos that could possibly happen in society in the future. So let's take an example. For instance, in a situation where a doctor faces a moral dilemma, right? Should they ever be initiating human trials, knowing that these people will possibly die for the greater good of human kind and society? Well, maybe these intentions seem kind of to outweigh the value of individual's life. Once we accept these kind of nature and this kind of practices, the invisible barrier between justice, between plurality, between morality begins to blur, and the moral concepts like utilitarianism, libertarianism starts to clash with each other and make the society way more chaotic than our modern society we live in today, right? So I'll be moving on to the second contention, which is about how we have different and other possible alternatives to effectively and efficiently address these kind of problems. So without sacrificing lives, historical context has shown us that meaningful change could also be achieved without morally questionable actions, right? So some different actions I'm talking about here is like public awareness campaigns, protests, peaceful protests, and such more, right? So one powerful example I have here comes from the Korean society, right? Particularly during the Gwangju Uprising. While this event isn't directly correlated to healthcare systems and was clearly associated with a violent response from the government, the citizens of Gwangju protested against the authoritarian regime and demanding democracy and justice. But the important thing here that we have to acknowledge that this movement wasn't about violence, but about the citizens' different approach standing against injustice, except from on these kind of extreme measures like sacrificing your life. So for a healthcare reform, we can achieve this significant change through collective ethical action for rather than like extreme measures such like sacrificing life and such more. So another example I want to talk about here lies in global movement of universal healthcare systems led by WHO and these kind of creation of UN SDGs that effectively show and portray the problem in modern day healthcare systems and the few other peaceful protests to address these meaningful changes and healthcare reforms. So, Judge, what have I told you today, right? So first, I argued that sacrificing lives for healthcare reform undermines this kind of critical value and this cultural concept of morality and how these kind of extreme measures will later compromise morality and cause other problems in society instead of effectively only resolving this kind of problem. Second, I also showed that that there are ethical and moral alternatives like collective public pressure, public protest to address this kind of problem in society and make meaningful changes in modern society. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 4 minutes, 40 seconds. Okay, thanks very much, Jake. We will be hearing from the second extemper in just over 3 minutes' time, I believe.
Yep.
What I'll do is just make a couple quick announcements because we have the time and space. So a reminder of how the rest of the day will work. We were able to kind of level out the schedule by having the extempers go ahead and prep. As no extemper could have been an impromptu, you had to pick one. So they were prepping while the impromptu was happening. I guess they'll get to watch the impromptu video later. All right, so once extemp is wrapped up, we'll be moving on swiftly to persuasive finals. That will be followed by the interp finals. Hopefully we still get a little break after that. The debate, the finalists have been announced. I'll go ahead now and announce that aloud. We've got from semifinal number 1, CN01, Carity Chow, HKO2, Benjamin Wu, HKO9, Lee Max Jin Wong. And we've got from semifinal number 2, we've got KR02, JSA, Joshua Shin. We've got HKO5, Evan Chow, and CN04, Rudy Chow. This does not mean, as it's listed in that order, that this is the rankings you were from your round. Actually, this was just based on pulling from the order of names that were in the first round. It also is not necessarily the case that your team is like this room's debaters against that room. That will all be updated sometime before that'll be the pairings for the finals, but that's just the list of people who made it in there. Congratulations to those who did, commiserations to those who did not. Also, if you're a judge throughout the day, please look. We do have our tentative judge postings up for each of the rounds. Once all rounds are finished, it tops off with after dinner. Then we'll probably need a little bit of time to get ready for what will then be an award ceremony announcing all of our winners across this event. One quick note about awards, because I don't think it was said yet. We will have, in addition to top speakers across different events, we'll also have the overall, meaning it's about your average across 3 events, right? So the actual champion isn't of any single event. It's like, how was your average across 3 events you did? That said, we do have, I believe it's U15 category. So stay tuned for that. If you're on the younger end of your group, that is another path for awards. That said, it looks like we're close to the time of our next speaker. So I'm going to wrap this up and pass things on. It's all yours, Andy.
Yep, okay, thank you. We'll just wait until my clock gets to 12:40. That's 1:40 Korean time, and then I'll invite the next speaker. Okay, so it is now time. Junseo, I think you're here. So if you can reveal yourself, and we will, look forward to your speech, and we'll start timing you when you start to speak. Good luck.
Thank you. Am I both visible and audible clearly?
You are to me.
Cool. Start my speech. Wait, should I type in my topic?
Yeah, sure, that would be helpful. We didn't ask Jake to do that. Maybe Jake can do that as well, although I think we all know what his topic was. But just for the sake of consistency, if Jake is still there, he can confirm his topic. Okay, Junseo, whenever you're ready.
Amidst the chaotic COVID pandemic, I remember a topic that became the core of the media's attention for a good 3 weeks. The Ukraine-Russia war. I remember communities relating to Ukraine booing with new footage of every day of heroic fighter jets defending the homeland, with battleships being resilient to capture events held under gunpoints. I remember when these stories were rampant. But when's the last time you heard about the Russo-Ukrainian war other than North Korean soldiers doing questionable things? Let me rephrase that question. When's the last time you thought about the actual civilians and young soldiers being slaughtered in the status quo in the situation in Ukraine? You, viewer, is the reason. Our ignorance is the reason that the Russo-Ukrainian war is still ongoing. Because when you look at how any war in our modern history occurs and ends, it starts with the media, which you are. The Vietnam War, when the people of the US march and call for its end. The Afghan War. The continuation of the Ukraine-Russia war is fueled by media silence as diminished coverage leads to a lack of public awareness, reduced accountability for makers, and weaken global advocacy for peace. Two arguments on the importance of media in stopping wars. Firstly, notice that media attention drives public pressure and accountability. That is to say, in the early stages of the Russo-Ukrainian war, widespread media coverage commanded the world's attention. And notice that this visibility sparked international outrage and led to protests, swift government responses, and potential talks of peace and mobilization of aid. The media created urgency, pressuring decision makers to act decisively. However, let's look at the comparative in the status quo. As the media shifted to focus to other issues, oftentimes more irrelevant, the conflict faded from public consciousness. Without headlines to maintain the said momentum, public pressure on the governments and international bodies weakened. This lack of scrutiny allows war to continue unchecked, and media attention is the engine of accountability because when it stops, so does the urgency to resolve the crisis in the first place. Second argument on the lack of coverage and how it diminishes public peace advocacy and grassroots efforts. Notice that the media coverage doesn't just inform, it connects people emotionally through the suffering of others. Stories of resilience and tragedy humanize victims, motivating individuals and communities to take action through all the methods I've said above, such as protests, petitions, and grassroots campaigns. They all thrive when the media highlights the injustice. When the coverage wanes, though, this emotional connection also wanes and erodes. The public disengages, and the movements that depend on their support completely lose momentum. Without widespread advocacy, there's less pressure on aggressors to negotiate peace or on leaders to prioritize resolution. Media silence creates a vacuum where the absence of attention permits the war to fester in the shadows. I want to conclude my speech and remind to everyone that casualties in Ukraine, in fact, never actually decreased. It always stood constant. In fact, the rate in which deaths are occurring is similar to the start of the war, where violence almost always peaks on. It's never too late for the media to actually start caring. But for the media to actually start caring, you need to care as well. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and make the guilty innocent, and that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. The Russo-Ukrainian war is ongoing because we got bored and we used one of the most powerful pieces that's been invented in human history, the media, wrongly, and we got bored of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Speaker spoke for 4 minutes, 27 seconds. 4 minutes, 27 seconds.